Charlotte collapsed the moment her feet touched the platform, her knees buckling as the world tilted sideways. The stagecoach driver caught her elbow, but she could already feel the blood draining from her face, her lungs refusing to fill properly. Through the haze of dizziness, she saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, standing perfectly still as he watched her crumble. This was Liam Callahan, her husband, the man who'd paid for a healthy bride and gotten a dying one instead. She tried to speak, to apologize, to explain, but her throat closed around the words. His expression didn't change. He just stared. Before we continue Charlotte and Liam's story, please subscribe to our channel and follow this journey to the very end. Leave a comment telling us what city you're watching from so we can see how far our stories have traveled. Now let's discover what happens next. Ma'am, you need to sit down. The driver's voice cut through the ringing in Charlotte's ears. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine in 3 years. Liam moved, then crossing the distance between them in 4 long strides. He didn't touch her, didn't offer his arm. He just looked at her with those dark eyes, calculating something she couldn't read. You're Charlotte Pierce. His voice was flat neutral. Yes. She forced herself to stand straighter, even though her legs were shaking. And you're Mr. Callahan. Liam. He glanced at the driver. I've got her. The driver tipped his hat and climbed back onto the stagecoach, leaving her alone with this stranger who was supposed to be her salvation. Charlotte's small trunk sat in the dust at her feet. Everything she owned in the world reduced to one battered case. You didn't mention you were sick. Liam's words weren't accusatory, just factual. Charlotte's stomach twisted. I mentioned I needed a fresh start. That's not the same thing. No. She met his gaze directly, refusing to look away. It's not. Liam studied her for a long moment, then picked up her trunk like it weighed nothing. Come on, we'll talk at the house. The walk to his wagon felt like a mile. Charlotte's chest burned with each breath, and she could feel the familiar tightness starting behind her ribs. Not now. Please, not now. She climbed onto the wagon seat, grateful when Liam didn't try to help her. She didn't want his pity. She'd had enough pity in New York to last a lifetime. The ranch was 20 minutes outside town. 20 minutes of silence so thick Charlotte could hear every labored breath she took. Liam didn't speak, didn't ask questions, just guided the horses with steady hands. She watched those hands, notice the calluses, the scars across his knuckles. Working hands. Honest hands. My wife died 6 years ago. His voice broke the silence so suddenly that Charlotte jumped. Consumption. Took her 8 months to go. Charlotte's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you for sympathy. Liam kept his eyes on the road. I'm telling you so you know I understand what sick looks like. And you're sick, Charlotte. Really sick. I know what I am. Do you? He finally looked at her, and there was something sharp in his expression. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you came out here to die somewhere pretty. The words hit like a slap. Charlotte felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she blinked them back. I came out here because I had nowhere else to go. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Liam pulled the wagon to a stop in front of a modest ranch house. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, well-maintained. Nothing like the gilded prison she'd left behind in New York. I need to know something before we go inside. Liam turned to face her fully. Did you marry me to have someone to bury you, or did you marry me because you want to fight? Charlotte's breath caught. No one had ever asked her that before. Not her parents, not the doctors, not anyone. They'd all just assumed she was giving up, fading away, accepting the inevitable. I want to fight, she whispered. Then we have a deal. Liam climbed down from the wagon, and this time he did offer his hand. Because I didn't bring you all the way out here to watch you die. I brought you here to live. Charlotte took his hand. His palm was warm, rough, solid. Real. Inside the house was sparse but comfortable. Liam showed her to a small bedroom with a window overlooking the mountains. You'll sleep here. I'll take the room across the hall. We're not... Charlotte stopped, heat rising to her cheeks. No. Liam's tone was matter-of-fact. Not until you're stronger. Not until you want to. Charlotte didn't know whether to feel relieved or insulted. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Liam set her trunk down at the foot of the bed. Tomorrow we're riding into town to see Doc Morrison. He's going to examine you, and we're going to figure out exactly what we're dealing with. I've seen dozens of doctors. East Coast doctors. Liam cut her off. Out here we do things different. Doc Morrison treated my wife. He knows about lung conditions, knows about the altitude, knows what helps and what doesn't. And if he says there's nothing to be done, Liam's jaw tightened. Then we'll prove him wrong. That night, Charlotte lay in her new bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch. Cattle lowing in the distance, wind rattling the windows. Somewhere down the hall, Liam moving around in his room. She'd expected coldness from him, anger maybe when he realized what kind of bride he'd gotten. Instead, she'd found something she didn't have a name for. Determination maybe. Stubbornness. Hope. The thought terrified her more than dying ever had. The next morning, Liam knocked on her door before sunrise. We're leaving in an hour. There's breakfast on the table. Charlotte dragged herself out of bed, her body protesting every movement. Her cough had worsened overnight, wet and rattling. She pressed a handkerchief to her mouth, saw the familiar spots of blood, and quickly hid it in her pocket before Liam could see. In the kitchen, he'd laid out eggs, bacon bread, more food than she'd eaten in weeks. I can't, she started. You can. Liam poured her coffee. And you will. Your body can't fight if you don't give it fuel. That's not how consumption works. Maybe not, but starving yourself definitely isn't helping. He sat down across from her, his plate equally full. Eat, Charlotte. That's not a request. There was steel in his voice, the kind that said he wouldn't back down. Charlotte picked up her fork and forced herself to take a bite, then another. The food sat heavy in her stomach, but she kept eating because Liam was watching her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Why are you doing this? She asked finally. You could send me back, annul the marriage, find someone healthy. I could. Liam finished his coffee. But I'm not going to. Why not? Because you're here. Because you said you wanted to fight. Because... He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. Because I gave you my word when I sent for you, and I don't go back on my word. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even particularly kind. But it was honest, and Charlotte realized she valued that more than empty promises. Doc Morrison's office smelled like carbolic acid and old leather. The doctor himself was gray-haired, weathered with hands that shook slightly as he examined Charlotte's chest with his stethoscope. Breathe in, he instructed. Now out. Again. Charlotte obeyed, feeling Liam's presence in the corner of the room like a physical weight. The doctor frowned, moved the stethoscope, listened again. How long? Doc Morrison asked. 3 years. Charlotte's voice was barely above a whisper. Maybe longer. And the doctors in New York, what did they say? That I should make my peace, that I had maybe a year left, probably less. Doc Morrison removed the stethoscope and sat back in his chair. Well, they were half right. Liam stepped forward. What does that mean? Means she's got consumption all right. Advanced stage, but... The doctor held up a hand when Liam started to interrupt. But I've seen folks in worse shape than this pull through. The dry air out here, it helps. And she's young, which counts for something. What do we do? Liam's voice was sharp, focused. First, she needs rest. Real rest, not just lying in bed feeling sorry for herself. She needs good food, clean air, sunlight. Second, Doc Morrison pulled out a bottle from his cabinet. This is a tonic. Cod liver oil, iron, some other things. Tastes like hell, but it'll help build her strength. She takes a spoonful 3 times a day, no exceptions. Charlotte stared at the bottle. That's it. That's your treatment. You were expecting miracles. Doc Morrison's tone was dry. I'm a doctor, not God. But yes, that's it. Rest, food, medicine, and time. If you're lucky, your lungs might scar over instead of getting worse. If you're very lucky, you might even improve. And if we're not lucky? Charlotte forced herself to ask. The doctor met her eyes steadily. Then Liam here will have to bury you, same as he buried his first wife. But I'll tell you what I told Mary Callahan 6 years ago. Luck favors the ones who fight. In the wagon on the way home, Charlotte couldn't stop shaking. Liam noticed, of course. He seemed to notice everything. You're scared, he said. Of course I'm scared. The words came out sharper than she intended. I just got told I might die. How else should I feel? You got told you might live. Liam kept his eyes on the road. That's not the same thing as being told you're dying. That's being told you have a chance. A chance isn't a guarantee. Nothing in life is guaranteed, Charlotte, but a chance is better than nothing, and nothing is what you had back in New York. She wanted to argue, wanted to push back against his certainty, but she was too tired. Instead, she watched the landscape roll by, endless sky mountains in the distance, golden grass bending in the wind. It was beautiful in a way that hurt, in a way that made her chest ache for reasons that had nothing to do with her lungs. I don't know how to do this, she admitted quietly. Do what? Hope. I don't know how to hope anymore. Liam was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rougher than before. Then don't. Don't hope, don't plan, don't think about tomorrow. Just wake up each morning and decide you're going to survive one more day. That's all you have to do. One day at a time. Is that what you did after your wife died? Yeah. The word came out heavy. That's exactly what I did. They didn't speak again until they reached the ranch. Liam helped her down from the wagon, and this time Charlotte let him. Her legs were shaking too badly to be proud. Go inside and rest, Liam said. I've got work to do, but I'll check on you in a few hours. Charlotte nodded and made her way to the house. But instead of going to her bedroom, she found herself standing in the kitchen looking at the space where she'd eaten breakfast that morning. There were dishes in the sink, Liam's dishes, her dishes mixed together like they belonged to the same life. She picked up a dish towel and started washing them. Her hands were still in the soapy water when Liam came back inside 20 minutes later. What are you doing? He sounded genuinely confused. The dishes. I can see that. I meant, why are you doing them instead of resting? Charlotte kept scrubbing. Because I'm not an invalid. Not yet. And if I'm going to be your wife, even just in name, then I'm going to pull my weight. Charlotte. No. She turned to face him, water dripping from her hands. You want me to fight, fine. I'll fight. But I'll do it my way, not by lying in bed feeling useless. I may be sick, but I'm not dead, and I won't act like I am. Liam stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, something changed in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. All right, he said. But you overdo it. You collapse, and I'm carrying you to bed myself. Deal. Deal. The first week passed in a blur of small battles. Charlotte took the horrible-tasting tonic 3 times a day, gagging on every spoonful. She ate meals even when she wasn't hungry, forcing down food her stomach didn't want. She helped with small tasks around the house, washing dishes, folding laundry, preparing vegetables for dinner, and ignored the way her hands shook and her lungs protested. Liam watched her like a hawk. Every cough, every stumble, every moment she had to stop and catch her breath he noticed. But he didn't coddle her, didn't treat her like glass. He just adjusted, left the heavy lifting for himself, made sure she sat down when she needed to, kept the tonic bottle on the kitchen table where she couldn't forget it. They developed a rhythm, a pattern. Mornings, Liam would wake before dawn and make breakfast. Charlotte would join him, and they'd eat together in comfortable silence. Then he'd head out to work the ranch while she tackled whatever indoor tasks she could manage. Lunch was simple, usually something cold. Dinner they cooked together, Liam handling the heavy pots while Charlotte chopped and stirred. They talked more than Charlotte had expected. Little things at first, comments about the weather, questions about ranch work, stories about the town. But gradually the conversations deepened. Why did you leave New York? Liam asked one evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Charlotte was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Because staying meant dying in a room full of people who were counting the days until they could inherit my father's money. At least out here, if I die, it'll be somewhere I chose. That's a grim way to look at it. Is it? You asked me before if I came here to die somewhere pretty. Maybe I did. But maybe I also came here because I wanted one last chance to feel alive before the end. Liam turned to look at her. And do you feel alive? Charlotte considered the question honestly. Her body hurt. Every breath was a struggle. The tonic made her nauseous and she was constantly exhausted. But she was also watching sunsets, eating meals with someone who actually talked to her, contributing to something instead of just wasting away in a sick room. More than I have in years, she admitted. Something shifted in Liam's expression. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, steady. Good, he said quietly. Because you're not dying, Charlotte. Not if I have anything to say about it. It was the closest thing to tenderness he'd shown her, and Charlotte felt something crack open in her chest. Not her lungs, something deeper. Something that had been frozen for so long, she'd forgotten it could thaw. But that night, everything changed. Charlotte woke up choking, her lungs seizing so hard she couldn't draw breath. She tried to call for Liam, but no sound came out. Panic flooded through her as she struggled to sit up, to breathe, to do anything but drown in her own body. The door crashed open. Liam was there, still in his nightshirt, his hair wild. He didn't ask questions, didn't waste time. He just lifted her, positioned her so she was sitting upright, one hand firm on her back. Breathe, he commanded. Charlotte, breathe. Small breaths. Don't fight it. Small breaths. She tried to follow his instructions, but her chest was on fire, her vision going dark at the edges. She was dying. This was it. After everything, after fighting so hard. Look at me. Liam's voice cut through the panic. Charlotte, look at me right now. She forced her eyes to focus on his face. You are not dying in my house, he said, each word deliberate and fierce. Not tonight, not ever. Now breathe. Small, controlled, with me. He breathed in slowly, exaggerating the movement. Charlotte tried to match him, failed, tried again. In, out, in, out. Slowly, painfully, her lungs started to work again. The panic receded. The darkness at the edges of her vision faded. She could breathe. Liam didn't let go. He stayed there, one hand on her back, the other holding hers, as she gasped and wheezed and fought her way back from the edge. When she finally managed a full breath, she started to cry. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Don't. Liam's voice was rough. Don't apologize for being sick. Don't apologize for needing help. Don't apologize for being human. You didn't sign up for this. I signed up for a wife. You're my wife. This is what that means. Charlotte looked up at him through her tears. His face was set, determined, and something else she couldn't quite name. Why are you being so kind to me? Because Liam stopped, seemed to struggle with something. Because when Mary was dying, all I wanted was more time. More chances to help her, to make it better, to fix what couldn't be fixed. I didn't get that. But I'm getting it now with you. And I'll be damned if I waste it. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning Charlotte wasn't sure she could fully understand. But she understood enough. I don't want to be a replacement for her, she whispered. You're not. Liam's hand tightened on hers. You're Charlotte. You're stubborn and proud, and you wash dishes when you should be resting. You're nothing like Mary. And that's exactly how it should be. Charlotte didn't have words for what she was feeling. So instead she just held onto his hand and let herself be held. Let herself be cared for. Let herself stop fighting for just a moment. When the sun rose the next morning, Liam was still there. Charlotte woke to find him slumped in the chair beside her bed, his head tilted at an angle that would leave his neck screaming for hours. Liam! Her voice came out scratchy, raw. He jerked awake instantly, his hand reaching for hers before his eyes were fully open. You all right? I should be asking you that. You can't have slept. I slept enough. He stood, stretched, winced. How's your breathing? Charlotte tested it carefully, drawing air in and out. Still painful, still tight, but not the terror of last night. Better. Good. I'm making you soup for breakfast. That's not breakfast food. It is when you spent half the night choking. Liam was already heading for the door. Don't argue. You won't win. She wanted to argue anyway, just on principle, but her body was too exhausted to fight. Instead, she lay there listening to him move around the kitchen pots, clanging water running. Taking care of her when he should be out working his ranch. The guilt sat heavy in her chest right next to the consumption. When he brought the soup thick with vegetables and chunks of beef, she forced herself to eat every drop. He watched her the whole time, those dark eyes tracking each spoonful. You're hovering, she said finally. I'm making sure you eat. I am eating. You can see me eating. Then I'm making sure you don't stop. But he sat back slightly, gave her an inch of space. Charlotte set the bowl down when it was empty. This can't continue. What can't? You, staying up all night, missing work, treating me like I'm going to shatter if you blink. Liam's jaw tightened. You nearly died last night. I've been nearly dying for 3 years. Last night wasn't special. It was to me. The words came out sharp, almost angry. Charlotte stopped, startled by the intensity in his voice. Liam, no, you don't get to do that. You don't get to almost die in my house and then tell me I'm overreacting. He stood abruptly, paced to the window. I watched Mary waste away for 8 months. 8 months of nights like last night of wondering if each breath would be her last. I'm not doing that again. I won't. Then what do you want from me? Charlotte heard her voice rising, felt frustration bubbling up. I can't promise I won't get sick. I can't promise I'll get better. I can't even promise I'll wake up tomorrow. So what exactly do you expect? Liam turned to face her, and there was something wild in his expression. I expect you to fight. I expect you to take the medicine and eat the food and rest when you need to. I expect you to not give up. I'm not giving up, aren't you? He crossed back to her bed. Because from where I stand, it looks like you've already decided how this ends. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Charlotte. If it were, you wouldn't be sick, and I wouldn't be standing here terrified that I'm going to lose another wife before I even get to know her. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Charlotte felt something shift inside her, something that had nothing to do with her lungs. You barely know me, she said quietly. I know enough. I know you're stubborn. I know you'd rather collapse than ask for help. I know you cry when you think no one's listening. I know you want to live, even though you're scared to hope. Liam sat down on the edge of her bed. And I know that watching you struggle to breathe last night was the most terrifying thing I've felt since Mary's last day. Charlotte couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up for entirely different reasons than her lungs. I'm not asking you to love me, Liam continued. I'm not even asking you to stay forever. I'm just asking you to try. Really try. Can you do that? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Then that's enough. He stood. Now get dressed. We're going back to Doc Morrison. We just saw him. That was before last night. He needs to know what happened. Charlotte wanted to argue, but the determined set of Liam's shoulders told her it would be pointless. She got dressed slowly, her body protesting every movement. When she emerged from the bedroom, Liam had the wagon ready. Doc Morrison's expression darkened when Liam described the night's events. How long did the attack last? The doctor asked. 10 minutes, maybe 15, Liam said. I couldn't get her breathing properly until nearly dawn. And the coughing before the attack was their blood. Charlotte hesitated. Liam answered for her. There's always blood. Doc Morrison pulled out a different bottle from his cabinet. This is laudanum. Very small doses, just enough to calm the coughing spasms. But Charlotte? He looked at her seriously. This is dangerous stuff. Too much and you won't wake up. You understand? I understand. Good. 2 drops in water when you feel an attack coming. No more than that, no matter how bad it gets. On the ride home, Charlotte stared at the bottle in her hands. This is what they gave Mary, isn't it? Liam's hands tightened on the reins. Yes. Did it help? For a while. Toward the end. He stopped, swallowed hard. Toward the end, nothing helped. I'm sorry you have to do this again. I'm not. Liam glanced at her. You're not her Charlotte. This isn't the same. How can you be sure? Because you just spent 10 minutes arguing with Doc Morrison about whether you really needed the laudanum. Mary never argued. She just accepted everything like she'd already made peace with dying. His voice dropped. You haven't made peace with anything. And that's why I think you might actually win. Charlotte looked down at the bottle again. 2 drops. The difference between breathing and suffocating. Between living and dying. Such a small margin. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear means you're still fighting. That afternoon, while Liam worked on repairing a fence line, Charlotte sat on the porch and tried to read. The words swam on the page, meaningless. She kept thinking about last night, about Liam's hand on her back, his voice commanding her to breathe, about the way he'd looked at her this morning like she mattered, like losing her would actually hurt him. It was too much. They'd only known each other 2 weeks. 2 weeks wasn't enough time to care this deeply. Was it? She was still mulling this over when a rider appeared on the horizon. As he got closer, Charlotte could make out a young man, maybe 25, with sandy hair and an easy smile. Afternoon, he called out as he approached. You must be the new Mrs. Callahan. Charlotte stood suddenly aware that she was alone. I am. Name's Thomas Reed. I ranch about 5 miles east. Thought I'd stop by, welcome you to the territory. He dismounted, tied his horse to the porch rail. Liam around. He's working on the south fence. Mind if I wait? I've got some business to discuss with him. Charlotte hesitated, then gestured to the other porch chair. Of course. Thomas sat, stretched out his legs. So you came all the way from New York. That's quite a journey. It was necessary. Must be a good story there. Charlotte didn't answer. Thomas seemed to take that as encouragement. I heard you were sick. Consumption, right? That's rough. My cousin had it. Died within 6 months of diagnosis. The casual cruelty of the words hit Charlotte like a fist. I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah, well, that's how it goes with consumption. You never really beat it, do you? Just delay the inevitable? Charlotte felt her chest tightening, but not from her lungs. Some people recover. Sure, some people. But let's be honest, you don't look like one of the lucky ones. No offense. Thomas! Liam's voice cut across the porch like a whip. Neither of them had heard him approach. What are you doing here? Thomas stood quickly. Just being neighborly, welcoming your bride. By telling her she's going to die. That's your idea of neighborly. I was just being realistic. You were being cruel, and you can get off my property right now. Thomas's easy smile vanished. Come on, Liam. I didn't mean anything by it. Yes, you did. You've been waiting for an excuse to come sniffing around here ever since I posted that ad for a wife. Well, here's the truth. Charlotte is my wife. She's staying my wife, and her health is none of your damn business. Liam stepped closer. Now get on your horse and don't come back. Thomas left, but not before shooting Charlotte a look that made her skin crawl. When the dust from his departure settled, Liam turned to her. You all right? He's wrong, isn't he? Charlotte hated how small her voice sounded. About consumption, about it always winning. Liam came up the porch steps, sat down in the chair Thomas had vacated. My wife died. That's true. Thomas's cousin died. Also true. But Doc Morrison has seen people recover, and I believe him. More importantly, I believe you. Why, you barely know me. I know you well enough. I know you got on a train by yourself when you were sick enough to collapse. I know you washed dishes your first day here, even though you could barely stand. I know you take that awful tonic without complaint 3 times a day. I know you fight Charlotte, and fighters sometimes win." Charlotte wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. That night she took her laudanum early. Just 2 drops in water, but enough to ease the tightness in her chest. Enough to let her sleep without the constant fear of waking up choking. She dreamed of New York. Of her father's cold house, her mother's disappointed face. Of doctors shaking their heads and sending bills her family paid without question. Of being invisible in a house full of people. When she woke, it was still dark. But across the hall, she could see light under Liam's door. She got up, wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and knocked softly. "Come in." Liam was sitting at a small desk ledger spread in front of him. He looked up when she entered, concern immediately crossing his face. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I slept, just woke up." Charlotte hovered in the doorway. "I heard Thomas earlier. What he said about you posting an ad for a wife. How long were you alone after Mary died?" Liam set down his pen. 5 years. That's a long time. It was what I needed. Time to figure out who I was without her. Time to stop being angry at God for taking her. He leaned back in his chair. "Why did you really come out here, Charlotte? The truth this time." Charlotte moved into the room, sat on the edge of his bed. "Because in New York, I was just the sick daughter, the burden, the one they whispered about at parties. Poor Charlotte, such a shame dying so young. I couldn't breathe there, and not just because of my lungs." She looked at him directly. "Out here at least I could die on my own terms, or live on them. Either way, it would be my choice. And now, what do you want now?" "I don't know." The admission cost her. "I thought I knew. I thought I wanted to fade away somewhere beautiful. But then you—" She stopped, struggling with the words. "You make me want to fight, and I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are." Liam stood cross to where she sat. "You're the strongest person I know." "I'm dying, Liam." "We're all dying. You're just more honest about it." He sat down beside her on the bed. "Listen to me. I'm not asking you to get better overnight. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm just asking you to wake up tomorrow and decide to live one more day. That's it. One day. And if I can't, then I'll be there to remind you why you should." Charlotte felt tears burning behind her eyes. "You're going to get hurt. When I die, it's going to destroy you. Maybe." Liam's voice was steady. "But I'd rather have whatever time we get than spend the rest of my life wondering what might have been." She turned to look at him, really look at him. This man who'd taken in a sick stranger, who'd held her hand through the worst night of her life, who looked at her like she was worth saving. "I can't promise you forever," she whispered. "I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for now." Charlotte leaned forward, rested her forehead against his shoulder. Liam's arm came around her, solid and warm and real. They sat like that for a long time, 2 damaged people holding on to each other in the darkness. The next morning, Charlotte woke in her own bed with no memory of how she'd gotten there. Liam must have carried her. The thought should have embarrassed her, but instead it made something warm bloom in her chest. She took her tonic, choked it down, and went to make breakfast. But when she entered the kitchen, Liam was already there, eggs sizzling in a pan. "I can do that," she said. "I know you can, but I want to." He glanced at her. "Besides, you look like hell. Did you sleep at all after we talked?" "Some." Charlotte poured herself coffee. "Liam, about last night. Nothing to apologize for." "I wasn't going to apologize, I was going to say thank you." Liam flipped the eggs onto 2 plates. "You're welcome. Now eat." They fell into their routine, but something had shifted. The silences felt less awkward. The glances lasted a little longer. When Liam's hand brushed hers as he passed the salt, neither of them pulled away quickly. 3 days later, a storm rolled in from the mountains. Dark clouds, gathering wind, picking up the air thick with the promise of rain. Liam spent the morning securing the ranch, bringing cattle in closer, checking that the barn was locked down tight. Charlotte watched from the window, worry building in her chest. The pressure change was already affecting her breathing. She took her laudanum early 2 drops and tried to stay calm. By afternoon, the rain started. Not gentle spring rain, but sheets of water driven sideways by wind that howled around the house. Liam came in soaked dripping on the kitchen floor. "It's bad," he said, stripping off his wet shirt. "Going to be a long night." Charlotte handed him a towel. "The cattle. They'll be fine. I'm more worried about the roof. There's a weak spot over the bedroom I've been meaning to fix." As if on cue, they heard a crash from Charlotte's room. They ran down the hall to find water pouring through a hole in the ceiling, rain flooding onto her bed. Damn it. Liam ran a hand through his wet hair. "I should have fixed that last week." "It's just water?" "It's your room, Charlotte. Where are you supposed to sleep?" They looked at each other. The unspoken answer hung between them. "I'll sleep out here," Charlotte said quickly. "On the settee in the front room." "The hell you will. You need a real bed." Liam grabbed her wet blankets, started pulling them off the mattress. "You'll take my room. I'll sleep out front." "Liam, no. This is your house. And you're my wife, my actual legal wife, which means what's mine is yours." He looked at her steadily. "Including my bed. Now go get whatever you need from in here before everything gets soaked." Charlotte gathered her things, her hands shaking slightly. Not from cold, but from something else entirely. The storm outside raged, but inside something even more dangerous was building. That night, lying in Liam's bed, surrounded by his scent, Charlotte couldn't sleep. The storm battered the house wind, screaming through cracks in the walls. And somewhere in the front room, Liam was probably just as awake. Around midnight, Charlotte gave up. She wrapped herself in a quilt and padded down the hall. Liam was sitting on the settee, staring at the fire he'd built in the hearth. He looked up when she appeared. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Storm's too loud." Charlotte sat down beside him, keeping a careful distance. "You..." "Same." They sat in silence, watching the fire. Outside, thunder cracked so close the house shook. "Tell me about Mary," Charlotte said suddenly. Liam looked surprised. "Why? Because you loved her, because she was your wife, because I should know about her if I'm going to..." She stopped, unsure how to finish. "If you're going to what?" Charlotte met his eyes. "If I'm going to fall in love with her husband." The words hung between them, impossible to take back. Liam went very still. "Charlotte, I know it's too soon. I know it doesn't make sense. I know I'm probably going to die, and you're going to lose someone else, and it's cruel of me to even feel this way. But I can't help it." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I look at you, and I feel alive. Really alive. For the first time in years." Liam reached for her hand. Mary was kind, gentle. She never raised her voice, never argued. She made this house a home. His thumb traced circles on Charlotte's palm. "But she's gone, and you're here, and you're nothing like her. You're fierce and stubborn, and you fight me on everything. You wash dishes when you can barely stand, and you refuse to give up even when it would be easier to quit. Is that good or bad? It's perfect." Liam pulled her closer. "You're perfect. Sick or healthy, dying or living, you're exactly who I need." Charlotte felt her heart hammer against her ribs. "I can't promise you I'll get better. I don't care. I can't promise you children or a long life or..." "Charlotte?" Liam cupped her face in his hands. "I don't want promises. I just want you. However long we get, whatever that looks like. Just you." She kissed him then, or maybe he kissed her. It didn't matter. What mattered was the way he tasted like coffee and wood smoke, the way his hands were gentle, despite their strength, the way her heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with consumption. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Liam rested his forehead against hers. "This is crazy," Charlotte whispered. "Probably. We've only known each other 3 weeks, 21 days. Liam kissed her again, softer this time. "Long enough to know I don't want to lose you. You might not have a choice. Then I'll make the most of whatever time we have." The storm raged outside, But inside, wrapped in Liam's arms, Charlotte felt safer than she had in years. It didn't cure her. It didn't make the consumption disappear. But for the first time since her diagnosis, she believed she might actually have something worth fighting for, something worth living for. They woke tangled together on the settee, morning light streaming through the windows. Charlotte's first thought was that she'd slept through the night without coughing once. Her second thought was that Liam's arm was around her waist, his breath warm against her neck. "You're awake," he murmured against her hair. "So are you." "Been awake for an hour. Didn't want to move." Charlotte turned in his arms to face him. In the daylight, last night felt both more real and more impossible. "Liam, we should talk about—" "No." He kissed her forehead. "We shouldn't. We should just have breakfast and take care of the ranch and live our lives. Talking about it will just make us second-guess everything." "That's not how relationships work." "Good thing we're not in a normal relationship then." Liam stood stretched. "Come on, I'll make eggs." But Charlotte grabbed at his hand before he could walk away. "I need to know this is real. That you're not just doing this because you feel sorry for me." Liam looked down at her, and there was nothing pitying in his expression. "Charlotte, if I felt sorry for you, I'd be gentle and careful and treat you like glass. Do I seem like I'm doing that?" "No." "Exactly. I'm demanding you eat. I'm making you take medicine that tastes like hell. I'm not letting you quit when things get hard. That's not pity. That's—" He stopped. "That's love. Or the start of it anyway." Charlotte's breath caught. "You can't mean that." "Why not?" "Because we've only known each other 3 weeks. My parents knew each other 2 days before they got married. They had 47 years together." Liam pulled her to her feet. "Time doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with it." Charlotte wanted to argue, to point out all the logical reasons why this was insane. Instead, she kissed him again, hard and desperate, trying to pour everything she couldn't say into that one gesture. When they finally broke apart, Liam was smiling. "Now, can I make breakfast?" "Only if you let me help." They worked side by side in the kitchen, and Charlotte couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this light. Her lungs still burned with every breath, her body still ached, but underneath all that was something new. Something that felt dangerously close to happiness. The storm had left the ranch a mess. Fences down the barn door hanging on one hinge, Charlotte's room still dripping water. Liam spent the morning assessing the damage, while Charlotte did what she could inside, mopping up water, salvaging what could be saved from her soaked belongings. She was wringing out a dress when Liam came back, in his face grim. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough. Going to take me at least a week to fix everything." He ran a hand through his hair. "And I need to ride into town for supplies. Nails, lumber, new hinges." "I'll come with you." "Charlotte? Don't tell me I'm too sick to handle a wagon ride." She set down the dress. "I feel better today than I have in months. Let me have this." Liam studied her for a long moment. "Fine, but if you start feeling bad, you tell me immediately." "Deal?" "Deal." The ride into town was bumpy, the roads still muddy from the storm, but Charlotte didn't care. She sat beside Liam on the wagon seat, their legs touching, and watched the landscape roll by. For the first time since coming west, she wasn't watching it like she was saying goodbye. She was watching it like she might actually get to see it change with the seasons. The general store was crowded when they arrived. Liam helped her down from the wagon, his hand lingering on her waist a moment longer than necessary. Inside, Mrs. Patterson, the store owner's wife, looked up from her ledger, and her eyes went straight to where Liam's hand rested on Charlotte's back. "Well, well, the new Mrs. Callahan actually made it into town. We were beginning to think Liam was keeping you locked up out there." Charlotte forced a smile. "Just getting settled." "Of course. Though I must say you're looking better than I expected. Thomas Reed stopped by last week, said you were at death's door." Liam's hand tightened on Charlotte's back. "Thomas Reed doesn't know what he's talking about." "Oh, I'm sure he didn't mean any harm. Just concerned, you know, after what happened with poor Mary." Mrs. Patterson. Liam's voice went cold. I need lumber nails and new hinges. Can you help me, or should I take my business elsewhere? The woman's mouth pinched shut. Of course. Let me get my husband. When she disappeared into the back, Charlotte turned to Liam. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. I'm not going to let people compare you to Mary. I'm not going to let them act like you're already dead. They're going to talk no matter what we do. Let them talk. As long as you're breathing, I don't give a damn what anyone says. Mr. Patterson appeared then, and they spent the next 20 minutes sorting through supplies. Charlotte wandered the store while Liam haggled over prices, running her fingers over bolts of fabric jars of preserves, seed packets for spring planting. Normal things. Things for people who had futures. She was looking at a display of ribbons when a woman's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. I give her 3 months. Maybe 4 if she's lucky. Charlotte turned. 2 women stood near the pickle barrel, not bothering to lower their voices. One was Mrs. Patterson. The other Charlotte didn't recognize. That long she looks half dead already. Well, Liam always did have a savior complex. Remember how he was with Mary, couldn't accept she was dying until she literally stopped breathing in his arms. At least Mary was healthy when he married her. This one, what kind of woman traps a man by answering a mail-order bride ad when she's got consumption? It's downright cruel. Charlotte's hands were shaking. She set down the ribbon she'd been holding and walked toward the door, not caring that Liam was still negotiating with Mr. Patterson. She just needed air, needed space, needed to not hear those words echoing in her head. Cruel. She was cruel for wanting to live. Cruel for accepting Liam's help. Cruel for falling in love with him. Outside, she leaned against the wagon and tried to breathe. But her lungs were tightening, the familiar panic setting in. Not now. Not here. Charlotte? Liam was beside her, his hands on her shoulders. What happened? Nothing. I needed air. You're shaking. I'm fine. Don't lie to me. He turned her to face him. What happened in there? Charlotte shook her head, not trusting her voice. If she tried to speak, she'd cry, and she was done crying over what people thought of her. But Liam wasn't letting this go. He left her by the wagon and marched back into the store. Charlotte heard raised voices, heard Mrs. Patterson protesting, heard Liam's sharp reply. When he came back out, his jaw was set like granite. We're leaving. Mr. Patterson will have our supplies delivered tomorrow. Liam, what did you do? Told them they lost my business. Told them I won't spend another cent in their store as long as they're employing people who gossip about my wife. He helped her onto the wagon. And I told Mrs. Patterson exactly what I thought of her opinions. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Liam climbed up beside her. I meant what I said, Charlotte. I don't care what people think, but I do care when they hurt you. And if that means I have to drive an extra hour to the next town for supplies, so be it. The ride home was quiet. Charlotte stared at her hands, those women's words playing over and over in her mind. What kind of woman traps a man? Cruel. 3 months, maybe 4. They're right, you know, she said finally. Liam didn't look at her. About what? About me trapping you. I should have told you how sick I was before I came. Should have given you a choice. I had a choice. I chose you. You chose someone you thought could help run your ranch, not someone who can barely make it through a day without collapsing. I chose someone whose letter made me feel something for the first time in 5 years. Liam pulled the wagon to a stop, turned to face her. Your first letter, do you remember what you wrote? Charlotte shook her head. You wrote that you were tired of being afraid, that you wanted to find out who you could be if you weren't always worrying about dying. You wrote that you'd rather take a chance on something real than waste away somewhere safe. His voice softened. That's who I chose, Charlotte. Not a housekeeper, not a helper. You, the woman who was brave enough to risk everything for a chance at living. I don't feel brave. You don't have to feel it. You just have to be it. Liam took her hand. And right now, being brave means not letting those bitter old women win. It means going home, taking your medicine, eating a good dinner, and waking up tomorrow ready to fight another day. Charlotte wanted to believe him. She wanted to silence the voices in her head that said she was foolish, cruel, selfish. But those voices had been there so long they felt more real than anything else. That night her coughing came back with a vengeance. She tried to muffle it, tried to stay quiet so Liam wouldn't hear, but within minutes he was at her door. "How bad?" he asked. "It's fine, just a little." She dissolved into another coughing fit, this one bringing up blood. Liam didn't ask permission. He just came in, got her sitting upright, measured out her laudanum. 2 drops. "I already took it earlier." "Then this is your second dose. Drink." Charlotte drank, hating the bitter taste, hating that she needed it. When the coughing finally subsided, she was exhausted. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what? For being sick, for ruining your life, for—" "Charlotte, stop." Liam sat on the edge of her bed. "You didn't ruin anything. You brought this house back to life. You made me remember what it felt like to care about someone. You gave me a reason to fix the roof and plant the garden and plan for next year. What if there is no next year for me? Then we'll make the most of this year. But I don't believe that's how this ends." "Why not everyone else does?" "Because everyone else didn't see you get off that stagecoach barely able to stand and then wash dishes 2 hours later just to prove you could. Everyone else didn't watch you force down that awful tonic 3 times a day without complaint. Everyone else doesn't know how hard you fight, Charlotte, but I do. And I'm betting on you." Charlotte felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I don't know if I can win." "You don't have to know. You just have to try." Liam wiped her tears with his thumb. "One day at a time, remember." She nodded, exhausted and scared and oddly comforted all at once. Liam stayed until she fell asleep, his hand holding hers in the darkness. The next week was hard. The supplies arrived as promised, but from a different store in the next town over. Liam worked himself ragged repairing the storm damage, and Charlotte pushed herself to help where she could. She cooked meals, mended clothes, tended the small kitchen garden Liam had planted. Small things, but they made her feel useful. Her health fluctuated wildly. Some days she felt almost normal. Other days she could barely get out of bed. The laudanum helped with the worst attacks, but it also left her foggy, disconnected. She hated the feeling of not being fully present, but she hated suffocating more. On a good day, she was hanging laundry when a horse and buggy appeared on the road. Not Liam, he was working on the far fence line. As the buggy got closer, Charlotte recognized Doc Morrison. "Mrs. Callahan," he called out, climbing down. "Thought I'd stop by, check on my patient." Charlotte set down the laundry basket. "I'm managing." "That's not what I asked." Doc Morrison pulled out his stethoscope. "Let's have a listen." Charlotte let him examine her standing still while he moved the cold metal across her back, her chest. His frown deepened with each breath. "How often are you using the laudanum?" he asked finally. "Every night, sometimes twice." "And the tonic?" "3 times a day, like you said." Doc Morrison put away his stethoscope. "Charlotte, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. You're not improving. If anything, you've gotten worse since I last saw you." The words hit like a physical blow. "But I've been doing everything you said." "I know. And I'm sorry, but sometimes that's not enough." He pulled a chair over, sat down heavily. "Consumption doesn't follow rules. It doesn't care how hard you fight or how much you want to live. Sometimes it just wins." "No." Charlotte shook her head. "No, I can't. Liam said I could beat this. Liam wants to believe that. Hell, I want to believe it too. But wanting something doesn't make it true." Doc Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. "You need to prepare yourself, Charlotte. And you need to prepare Liam. Because the way things are going, you might not make it to winter." Charlotte felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "How long?" 3 months, maybe 6 if you're careful. But that's optimistic. "Does Liam know you're here?" "No. And I'm not going to tell him what I just told you unless you want me to. But Charlotte, he deserves to know the truth." After Doc Morrison left, Charlotte sat on the porch steps and tried to process what she'd just heard. 3 to 6 months, less than half a year. All those plans she'd started making in her head, spring planting, summer harvest, maybe even a baby someday, they were fantasies. Cruel jokes her mind was playing on her dying body. She heard Liam's footsteps before she saw him, his boots crunching on the gravel path. "Was that Doc Morrison's buggy I saw leaving?" he asked. Charlotte kept her eyes on the horizon. "Yes." "What did he want?" "Just checking on me." Liam sat down beside her. And nothing. Same as always. Take the medicine, rest, eat well." She could feel Liam studying her, could sense he knew she was lying. But he didn't push. Instead, he just took her hand and sat with her in silence. That night, Charlotte made a decision. She couldn't tell Liam what Doc Morrison had said. Couldn't watch the hope drain from his eyes, couldn't bear to see him start grieving her before she was even gone. But she also couldn't keep pretending everything would be fine. She found him in the barn checking on the horses. "Liam, I need to ask you something." He looked up from the feed bucket. "What is it?" "If I die when I die, I don't want you to blame yourself. I don't want you to think you could have done more, or tried harder, or saved me somehow." The words came out in a rush. "You've given me more in 3 weeks than I had in 3 years back east. You made me feel alive. You made me want to fight. And when it's over, I need you to know that was enough." Liam set down the bucket slowly. "Why are you talking like this?" "Because it's true. Because I need you to hear it." "No." Liam crossed to her, grabbed her shoulders. "No, you don't get to give up. You don't get to start planning your own funeral." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic." "Realistic? Doc Morrison told you something, didn't he?" "What did he say?" Charlotte tried to pull away, but Liam's grip was firm. "It doesn't matter." "The hell it doesn't. Tell me." 3 to 6 months. The words exploded out of her. "He said I have 3 to 6 months if I'm lucky. That I'm getting worse, not better. That consumption doesn't care how hard I fight. Are you happy now?" Liam went very still. "He said that to you. To my wife alone without me there. He was trying to help me prepare. He was trying to make you give up." Liam released her shoulders, started pacing. "I'm riding into town right now. I'm going to have some words with Doc Morrison about his bedside manner." "Liam, don't. He was just being honest." "Honest? He told a sick woman she's going to die in 6 months. That's not honest. That's cruel." Liam turned back to her. "Do you believe him?" "I don't know." "Well, I don't. I don't believe in his timeline or his predictions or his medical expertise. You know what I believe in, you. I believe you're stronger than any disease. I believe you're going to prove every single one of those doctors wrong. That's not how medicine works." "I don't care how medicine works." Liam's voice echoed through the barn. "I care about you, and I'm not letting you die just because some doctor said you would. You can't stop it by wanting it badly enough. Watch me." Charlotte stared at him, this impossible man who thought love could cure consumption. Part of her wanted to shake him, make him see reason. But another part, a deeper part, wanted desperately to believe he was right. "What if he's right?" she whispered. "What if I only have 6 months?" Liam pulled her into his arms. "Then we make those 6 months count for more than 6 years. We make every day matter. We love each other so hard that when you're 90 years old and proving Doc Morrison wrong, you'll still remember this moment. 90 years old, now you're just being ridiculous. Maybe, but I'd rather be ridiculously hopeful than realistically defeated." Charlotte buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent of hay and leather and hard work. "I'm scared." "I know, so am I." "Then how do you stay so certain?" "Because the alternative is unacceptable." Liam's arms tightened around her. "I lost Mary because I didn't have a choice. But with you, I have a choice. I can choose to believe. I can choose to fight. I can choose to love you with everything I have and trust that love means something." That night, Charlotte slept in Liam's bed, their bed now, she supposed. They didn't make love. They just held each other, two people clinging together against the darkness. And for those few hours, Charlotte let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, love could be enough. The next morning brought a new crisis. Charlotte woke coughing so hard she couldn't catch her breath. The laudanum was almost gone. They'd need more, which meant another trip to town, which meant facing Doc Morrison again. Liam left before dawn to make the journey, his face set with determination. Charlotte tried to rest, but anxiety wake. What if the medicine didn't work anymore? What if this was the beginning of the end? Doc Morrison had predicted. When Liam returned hours later, he wasn't alone. Behind his wagon was another carrying a woman Charlotte didn't recognize. "This is Margaret Chen," Liam said, helping the woman down. "She's a healer from Sacramento, specializes in lung conditions." Margaret was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, with sharp eyes and quick movements. She looked Charlotte over with a professional gaze. "You're the consumptive bride," she said without preamble. "Liam told me your situation. How long since diagnosis?" 3 years. "And conventional treatments have failed." "Obviously." Margaret smiled at that. "Good. You're angry. Anger is useful. Now show me where I can work." Over the next hour, Margaret examined Charlotte more thoroughly than any doctor had before. She checked her pulse, her tongue, her fingernails. She listened to her breathing from every angle. She asked about diet, sleep, stress, family history. Finally, she sat back. "Your lungs are scarred, yes, badly. But I've seen worse. I've seen people recover from worse." Charlotte's heart jumped. "Really? Really? The consumption has progressed, but it hasn't won yet. Your body is still fighting. We just need to help it fight smarter." Margaret pulled bottles and packets from her bag. "Forget everything the white doctors told you. We're starting fresh." "What's the treatment?" Liam asked. "First, we're throwing out that useless tonic. It's doing nothing but making her nauseous. Second, Charlotte starts taking this." She held up a dark powder. 3 times a day in hot water. It tastes worse than the tonic, but it actually works. Third, breathing exercises. Every morning and evening, specific patterns to strengthen the lungs. That's it. Charlotte couldn't believe something so simple could help. That's the start. We also change your diet: more protein, certain herbs, less dairy. You'll spend 2 hours a day outside in fresh air even when it's cold. And Margaret looked at Liam. She needs peace. No stress, no worrying, no guilt. Her body can't fight the disease and emotional turmoil at the same time. "I can do that," Liam said immediately. "Can you?" Margaret turned her sharp gaze on him. "Because from what I can see, you love this woman. And love, while powerful, can also be a burden. She needs to know that whether she lives or dies, you'll be all right. She needs permission to fight without worrying about you." The words hit Charlotte like a revelation. That was exactly what she'd been doing, fighting the consumption, while simultaneously trying to protect Liam from the pain of losing her. "How did you know?" Charlotte asked. "Because I've seen it before. The sick trying to take care of the healthy. It never works." Margaret stood. "So here's what's going to happen. Charlotte, you focus entirely on getting better. Nothing else. Liam, you support her, but you don't smother her. And both of you stop acting like she's already in the grave." After Margaret left with promises to return in 2 weeks, Charlotte and Liam sat at the kitchen table staring at the packet of dark powder. "Do you think it'll work?" Charlotte asked. "I think it's worth trying. And if it doesn't..." Liam reached across the table, took her hand. "Then at least we tried everything. But Charlotte, I have a feeling about this. About Margaret. About you. I think this is going to work." Charlotte wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe. Charlotte mixed the powder into hot water that first morning, watching it turn the liquid an unappetizing brown. The smell alone made her stomach turn. "Margaret said it tastes worse than the tonic," Liam reminded her. "That's not possible." But Charlotte lifted the cup to her lips and drank anyway. The taste was indescribable, bitter, earthy, with an aftertaste that coated her tongue like mud. She gagged, forced herself to swallow. "I was wrong. It's much worse." "But you drank it." "I drank it." Charlotte set the cup down, fighting nausea. "If this kills me before the consumption does, I'm haunting you." "Fair enough." Liam pulled out a chair. "Now for the breathing exercises Margaret taught us." They spent the next 20 minutes working through the patterns. Slow. Inhale through the nose. Hold. exhale through the mouth. It was harder than Charlotte expected. Her lungs protested each controlled breath, her chest burning with the effort. But Liam counted the seconds, kept her focused, refused to let her quit. By the time they finished, Charlotte was exhausted, and it wasn't even noon yet. "This is going to be my life now?" she asked, choking down horrible medicine and struggling to breathe on purpose. "For a while, then it gets easier." "You don't know that." "No, but I choose to believe it." Liam helped her to her feet. "Come on." Margaret said 2 hours outside. "Let's walk." They walked the property line, Liam matching his pace to hers. Charlotte's lungs ached with every step, but she kept going. When she had to stop and rest, Liam didn't hover or fuss. He just stood beside her, waiting. "Tell me about Mary," Charlotte said during one of these breaks. Liam looked surprised. "Why do you keep asking about her?" "Because I need to know if you're trying to save me or trying to save her through me." The words hung between them, sharp and honest. Liam was quiet for a long moment. "When Mary got sick, I was angry," he said finally. "Angry at God, angry at the disease, angry at her for leaving me. I threw myself into trying to fix her, because fixing her meant I didn't have to face losing her." He turned to look at Charlotte directly. "But with you, it's different. I'm not trying to save Mary. I'm trying to save you because I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. Does that make sense?" "I think so." "Good. Because I need you to understand, whatever happens, this isn't about my past. It's about our future. However long that is." Charlotte reached for his hand. "I'm going to get better. I have to believe that now, or I'll go insane." "Then believe it, and I'll believe it with you." The first week on Margaret's treatment was brutal. Charlotte's body rebelled against the new medicine, leaving her nauseous and weak. The breathing exercises left her gasping. The 2-hour walks felt impossible. But she kept doing it day after day because Liam believed in her, and she was starting to believe in herself. By the second week, something shifted. The nausea faded. The breathing exercises got fractionally easier. Charlotte made it through an entire day without coughing up blood. "It's working," she told Liam that night, almost afraid to say it out loud. "I know." "How can you be so certain?" "Because you smiled today. Really smiled, not just to make me feel better. That's how I know." But the next morning, everything fell apart. Charlotte woke to find Liam gone and a note on the kitchen table: "Rode to town for supplies. Back by noon. Take your medicine. L." She took the awful powder, did her breathing exercises, and was preparing to start her walk when she heard horses approaching. Multiple horses. Charlotte went to the window and felt her stomach drop. Thomas Reed was back, and he'd brought friends. Charlotte opened the door before they could knock, keeping her expression neutral. "Liam isn't here." "We know." Thomas dismounted, all easy confidence. "We came to talk to you, Mrs. Callahan." "I have nothing to say to you." "That's unfortunate, because we have something to say to you." Thomas gestured to the men with him, 4 ranch hands Charlotte didn't recognize. "See, word around town is that you're getting worse. That Doc Morrison gave you less than 6 months, and some of us are concerned about Liam." "Liam is fine." "Is he? Because from where we're standing, he's throwing away good money on a lost cause. New medicine, special healers, all while his ranch falls apart around him." Thomas stepped closer. "We're his neighbors, Mrs. Callahan. We look out for each other. And right now Liam needs protecting from himself." Charlotte's hands clenched into fists. "Get off our property. Not until you hear us out. You need to leave. Go back to New York or wherever you came from. Let Liam get on with his life before you destroy him completely." "I'm not going anywhere." "You sure about that? Because I'm willing to make you a deal. There's a stagecoach leaving for Denver tomorrow morning. I'll pay your fare, give you enough money to get back east, and Liam never has to know we had this conversation." Charlotte felt rage building in her chest. "You think I'm here for his money? You think I trapped him? I think you're a desperate woman who saw an opportunity. I think you knew exactly what you were doing when you answered that ad." Thomas's voice turned cold. "And I think the kindest thing you could do right now is disappear before Liam wastes another day trying to save you. The kindest thing." Charlotte's voice shook with fury. You want to know what's kind Liam giving me a reason to fight. Liam believing in me when everyone else had already written me off. Liam loving me enough to try every possible treatment instead of just watching me die. That's kindness, Thomas. What you're doing is cruelty dressed up as concern. So that's a no to the stagecoach. That's a get the hell off my property before I get the rifle. Thomas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Your property. Last I checked, you're just the sick wife. This ranch belongs to Liam. And when you're gone, and you will be gone one way or another, he's going to need real neighbors. Remember that. They left, but the threat lingered in the air long after the dust from their horses settled. Charlotte stood on the porch, shaking with anger, and something that felt uncomfortably like fear. Thomas was right about one thing the ranch was suffering. She'd seen Liam working himself to exhaustion, falling behind on repairs, letting fields go unplanted because he was too busy taking care of her. When Liam returned an hour later, Charlotte was in the kitchen scrubbing the floor with vicious intensity. What are you doing? He asked. Cleaning. Charlotte, you're supposed to be resting. I'm tired of resting. She threw the brush into the bucket, splashing soapy water across the floor. I'm tired of being useless while you work yourself to death. I'm tired of being the sick wife everyone pities. I'm tired of all of it. Liam set down his supplies carefully. What happened? Nothing. Don't lie to me. Something happened while I was gone. Charlotte wanted to tell him about Thomas, about the offer, about the thinly veiled threats, but saying it out loud would make it real, would prove that people were right to worry about her being a burden. I just had a bad morning, she said instead. Charlotte, please, can we just pretend today didn't happen? Can we go back to believing everything will be fine? Liam crossed the kitchen and pulled her into his arms, ignoring her protests. Tell me what happened. And somehow, wrapped in his embrace, the whole story came tumbling out. Thomas's visit, the offer to leave, the implications that she was destroying Liam's life. When she finished, Liam was very, very still. I'm going to kill him, he said quietly. Liam, no. Not literally. But I am going to ride over to his property and explain very clearly that if he ever sets foot on our land again, I will make him regret it. That'll just make things worse. I don't care. He threatened you. He tried to pay you to leave. That's not concern, Charlotte. That's sabotage. Liam pulled back to look at her. Did you consider it, taking his offer? For about 5 seconds. Then I remembered I'd rather die here with you than live anywhere else without you. Something in Liam's expression softened. Even though I'm difficult and stubborn and make you drink horrible medicine. Especially because of that. Charlotte managed a weak smile. Besides, who else would put up with me? Anyone with half a brain and a functioning heart. Liar. Liam kissed her, then soft and gentle like she was something precious. I'm not letting you go, Charlotte. Not for Thomas Reed, not for the whole damn town, not for anything. You understand. I understand. But that night, alone in their bed, while Liam slept beside her, Charlotte couldn't stop thinking about Thomas's words. The ranch was suffering. Liam was exhausted, and she was the reason for all of it. Maybe leaving would be the kindest thing after all. The thought followed her into the next day, dark and persistent. She took her medicine, did her exercises, went on her walk. But the joy had gone out of it. Now every breath felt like proof that she was taking something from Liam that he'd never get back. Margaret returned that afternoon for her 2-week check. She examined Charlotte thoroughly, then sat back with a satisfied expression. You're improving, she announced. Charlotte's heart jumped. Really, really, your lungs sound clearer. The scarring hasn't progressed. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But I don't feel better. I still cough, still get tired. Healing isn't linear. Some days will be worse than others. But, overall, you're moving in the right direction. Margaret packed up her equipment. I'd say if you continue this treatment for another 3 months, we might see real improvement, maybe even remission. After Margaret left, Charlotte sat on the porch and tried to process this information. 3 more months of treatment. 3 more months of Liam sacrificing his ranch to take care of her. 3 more months of being a burden. She was still sitting there when Liam found her at sunset. "Margaret says you're improving," he said, sitting beside her. "She says I might improve. That's not the same thing?" "It's better than what Doc Morrison said." "Is it because 3 more months means 3 more months of you neglecting the ranch? 3 more months of you working yourself to exhaustion? 3 more months of the whole town watching and waiting for me to die?" Liam was quiet for a moment. "Charlotte, what's really going on?" "I'm tired, Liam. Tired of fighting, tired of hoping, tired of watching you give up everything for me." "I'm not giving up anything." "Yes, you are." The words burst out of her. "I see it every day. The repairs you don't make. The cattle you sell off because you can't manage them alone. The fields going unplanted. You're destroying your life to save mine, and I can't stand it anymore." "So what do you want me to do?" "Ignore you. Let you die." "Because that's not happening. I want you to admit that this isn't sustainable. I want you to acknowledge that maybe Thomas was right. Maybe the kindest thing I could do is leave before I take everything from you." Liam stood abruptly. Don't you dare compare yourself to that bastard's poison." "What if he's right, though? What if I am destroying you?" "Then let me be destroyed." Liam's voice echoed across the empty land. "Let me sacrifice the ranch and my sleep and every damn thing I own. It's my choice, Charlotte. My life. And I'm choosing you." "But what if I don't want you to choose me? What if I can't live with the guilt of watching you lose everything?" "Then that's your burden to carry. Because I'm not changing my mind." They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension and frustration, and something that felt like fear. "I don't know how to do this," Charlotte whispered. "I don't know how to let you love me when it costs you so much." Liam's expression softened. "Then learn. Because I'm not going anywhere and neither are you." That night, Charlotte lay awake thinking about choices, about sacrifice, about what it meant to accept love when accepting it felt like taking something you hadn't earned. She'd spent 3 years convinced she was dying. Now she was being told she might live, and somehow that was more terrifying than death had ever been, because living meant facing the consequences of her choices. Living meant accepting that Liam had given up his peace for her chance at survival. Living meant carrying the weight of his sacrifice every single day. She must have dozed off eventually, because she woke to Liam shaking her shoulder, his face tight with urgency. "Get up. We need to go." "What? Why?" "Fire. Thomas Reed's ranch is burning. They're calling for help." Charlotte scrambled out of bed, her mind racing. "You're going to help him after what he did. He's my neighbor. No matter what happened between us, I can't let his ranch burn." Liam was already pulling on his boots. "You stay here. Rest. I'll be back as soon as I can." "No." Charlotte stood, grabbed her own shoes. "If you're going, I'm going." "Charlotte, you're sick, and I can still carry water buckets. I can still help." She met his eyes. "You don't get to protect me from everything, Liam. Let me do this." They rode hard, reaching Reed's property just as dawn was breaking. The barn was engulfed flames reaching toward the sky. Men and women from neighboring ranches were already there, forming bucket lines, trying to save what they could. Charlotte joined the line, passing buckets despite her protesting lungs. The smoke made breathing almost impossible, each inhale a knife to her chest. But she kept going, kept passing, buckets, kept fighting. She was reaching for another bucket when her legs gave out. The world tilted. Charlotte felt herself falling, heard someone shout her name. Then strong arms caught her, lowered her to the ground. "Charlotte! Charlotte, can you hear me?" It was Liam, his face covered in soot eyes, wide with panic. "I'm fine," she tried to say, but her lungs were seizing, refusing to cooperate. "Someone get water now." Charlotte tried to breathe, couldn't try it again. The familiar terror of suffocation flooded through her. Not here, not in front of everyone, not proving Thomas right about how weak she was. But her body didn't care about pride. Her vision started to darken at the edges, her chest on fire. Then Liam was there, his hands on her face. "Look at me. Charlotte, look at me. Small breaths. You can do this. Small breaths with me." She focused on his voice, on his steady presence, on the rhythm he was setting. Slowly, painfully, her lungs started working again. The darkness receded. She could breathe. When she finally managed to take a full breath, she found half the town staring at her, including Thomas Reed, his face smudged with ash, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," Charlotte gasped. "I thought I could help." "You did help." Liam cut her off. "You helped for an hour. That's more than most people could do. But I collapsed. Because you pushed yourself too hard. Because you were trying to prove something." Liam helped her sit up. "You don't have to prove anything, Charlotte. Not to them, not to me, not to anyone." Thomas approached them then, and Charlotte braced for another confrontation. But his face was different now, almost humble. "Mrs. Callahan," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology." Charlotte blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I was wrong," Thomas continued. "About you, about your reasons for being here. I watched you out there passing buckets when you could barely stand fighting to help save my ranch after the things I said to you." He shook his head. "That's not someone taking advantage. That's someone who cares. I was wrong and I'm sorry." Charlotte didn't know what to say. Liam spoke for her. "Apology accepted. Now if you'll excuse us, I need to get my wife home." On the ride back, Charlotte leaned against Liam's shoulder, exhausted beyond measure. Her lungs ached, her arms trembled, but there was something else too. A sense of lightness she couldn't quite name. "I proved him wrong," she said. "You did. I proved everyone wrong. I'm not just the sick wife. She stopped searching for the right word. "You're my wife," Liam finished. "Strong, stubborn, impossible, and I wouldn't have you any other way." Charlotte closed her eyes, let herself sink into the feeling. For the first time since coming west, she wasn't thinking about dying. She was thinking about living. Really living. That night, as Liam helped her into bed, Charlotte caught his hand. "Thank you," she said. "For what? For not giving up on me. For believing I could get better. For loving me enough to fight for me." Liam sat on the edge of the bed. "Charlotte, I need you to understand something. This isn't one-sided. You saved me too. You brought life back into this house. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. You made me remember what it felt like to hope. Even when I'm difficult and scared and trying to push you away. Especially then." He leaned down, kissed her forehead. "Because those are the moments when you need me most. And I'll always be there for those moments." Charlotte pulled him closer, kissed him properly this time. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, she smiled. "I think I'm going to live," she said. "I know you are." "How can you be so sure?" Liam settled beside her, pulled her into his arms. "Because you just fought a fire on a neighboring ranch when you could barely breathe. Because you stood up to Thomas Reed twice. Because you take that horrible medicine 3 times a day without complaint. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met, Charlotte, and strong people survive." Charlotte let his words wash over her. Let herself believe them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow she'd have to take the awful medicine again, do the painful exercises again, face the uncertainty again. But tonight, wrapped in Liam's arms, she let herself hope. Really hope, for the first time in years. 3 months, Margaret had said. 3 months to remission. 3 months to a new life. Charlotte could survive 3 months. She'd already survived so much more. Charlotte woke the next morning to pain radiating through her chest, like someone had taken a hammer to her ribs. Every breath was agony. The fire, the smoke, the hours of physical exertion, her body was making her pay for it now. She tried to get out of bed and immediately collapsed back onto the mattress. "Charlotte!" Liam was beside her instantly. "What's wrong?" "Everything hurts." "I'll get your medicine." "No." She forced herself upright despite the pain screaming through her lungs. "I need to do the breathing exercises first." Margaret said consistency matters more than comfort. Margaret also said not to kill yourself. Liam tried to push her back down. Charlotte shoved his hands away. I'm not dying from a little pain. Help me sit up or get out of my way. You're being stubborn. I'm being determined. There's a difference. Liam stared at her for a long moment, then grabbed pillows and propped them behind her back. Fine, but if you pass out, I'm carrying you straight to Doc Morrison, and you don't get a vote. They worked through the breathing exercises, Charlotte gritting her teeth through each controlled inhale. The pain was worse than any coughing fit she'd had in weeks, but she refused to stop. When they finished, she was shaking and covered in sweat. Now the medicine, Liam said, already mixing the powder. Charlotte drank it down, fighting not to vomit. I overdid it yesterday. You think? Don't be smug. I helped save Thomas's barn. You also nearly died in front of half the county. Liam sat on the edge of the bed. Charlotte, I know you want to prove you're strong. You don't have to prove it by destroying yourself. I'm not destroying myself. I'm pushing my limits. That's how you get stronger. That's also how you end up dead. Charlotte grabbed his hand. I'm not going to die from helping my neighbors. I'm going to die if I spend the rest of my life too scared to live. That's not... Liam stopped, seemed to wrestle with something. You're right. I hate it, but you're right. Say that again. I want to remember this moment. Don't push your luck. But Charlotte could see the corner of his mouth twitching. She leaned forward and kissed him, ignoring the way her ribs protested the movement. I love you, she said when they pulled apart. Liam went very still. What? I love you. I should have said it before, but I was scared. Scared it would make losing me harder for you. Scared it would jinx my chances. But I'm done being scared, Liam. I love you, and I need you to know that. Liam's eyes were suspiciously bright. I love you too. Have since that first night when you washed dishes instead of resting. Maybe even before that. When I collapsed getting off the stagecoach. When I read your letter and knew I'd found someone worth fighting for. Charlotte felt something break open in her chest, and this time it had nothing to do with consumption. We're going to make it, aren't we, both of us? Yes, we are. The next week tested that certainty. Charlotte's body rebelled against the abuse she'd put it through. Her coughing fits returned with a vengeance, each one bringing up blood. The pain in her chest intensified. She could barely walk from the bedroom to the kitchen without needing to rest. Liam watched her like a hawk, his face getting grimmer with each passing day. Maybe we should stop the treatment, he said on the 5th day. What number? Absolutely not. Charlotte, you're getting worse. I'm healing. Margaret said there would be setbacks. Charlotte forced herself to stand, even though her legs were shaking. My body is fighting back. That's good. That means it's working. Or it means you're dying. The words hung between them, brutal and honest. Do you really believe that? Charlotte asked quietly. Liam looked away. I don't know what to believe anymore. I see you suffering every day and I can't fix it. I can't make it better. All I can do is watch you hurt and pretend I'm not terrified. Charlotte crossed to him, took his face in her hands. Then stop pretending. Be terrified. Be angry. Be whatever you need to be. But don't ask me to quit. Because if I quit now, I really will die. Not from the consumption, but from giving up, and I won't do that to either of us. What if trying kills you faster than quitting would? Then at least I died fighting. At least I died trying to live instead of just waiting to die. She pressed her forehead against his. Have faith in me, Liam. Just a little longer. Please. I have nothing but faith in you. It's the disease I don't trust. 2 days later, Margaret arrived for her monthly check. She examined Charlotte in silence, her face revealing nothing. Finally, she sat back. Your lungs sound worse than last time, she said bluntly. Charlotte felt her stomach drop. But I've been doing everything you said. I know, and that's why you're still alive. Margaret pulled out a fresh packet of powder. This is stronger. Double dose. It's going to taste even worse and make you more nauseous, but your body needs it. The scarring is trying to spread. We have to stop it now, or you won't make it to spring. How long do I have? Charlotte forced herself to ask. If the new treatment works, years, maybe decades. If it doesn't. Margaret's expression was grave. Weeks. Maybe a month. Liam made a sound like he'd been punched. Then we make it work, Charlotte said, her voice steady despite the terror flooding through her. Whatever it takes. Margaret handed her the packet. Triple the breathing exercises. 6 hours outside every day, even if it's snowing. No more helping with heavy work, your body can't afford the strain. And Charlotte? The healer's voice softened slightly. Start saying the things you need to say, just in case. After Margaret left, Charlotte and Liam sat in the kitchen in silence. The new packet of powder sat on the table between them like a death sentence. I'm not ready, Charlotte whispered. Ready for what? To say goodbye, to make peace, to do any of the things Margaret just told me to do. She looked at Liam. I know I should be practical. I know I should prepare you for the worst. But I can't. I won't. Then don't. Liam reached across the table. We're going to fight this. Together. And we're going to win. You can't promise that. Watch me. Charlotte started the new treatment that afternoon. The stronger powder was exactly as horrible as Margaret had warned. It burned going down, made her stomach revolt, left her dizzy and disoriented. But she choked it down 3 times a day without fail. The 6 hours outside nearly killed her. By the end of the first day, she was so exhausted she couldn't make it to the bedroom. Liam carried her, laid her down fully clothed, and sat beside her until she fell asleep. The second day was worse. The third day, Charlotte seriously considered quitting. On the fourth day, something changed. She woke up and took a breath without pain. Not completely without pain. Her lungs still ached, still protested, but the sharp stabbing sensation was gone. She tried another breath. Then another. Liam. Her voice came out stronger than it had in days. Liam, wake up. He jerked awake. What's wrong? Nothing. Nothing's wrong. I can breathe. You've been breathing. No, really breathe, without it feeling like knives. Charlotte took a deep breath to demonstrate, felt tears spring to her eyes when her lungs actually expanded properly. It's working. The treatment is working. Liam pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe for entirely different reasons. I told you. I told you you'd make it. Don't celebrate yet. This could just be a good day. Then we'll take it. We'll take every good day we get and be grateful for it. The good days started outnumbering the bad. Slowly, incrementally, Charlotte felt herself getting stronger. She could walk for an hour without needing to rest. Her coughing fits came less frequently. The blood in her handkerchiefs appeared less often, then stopped altogether. Margaret returned after 6 weeks and listened to Charlotte's lungs with her stethoscope. She moved it from spot to spot, listened carefully, then sat back with something that might have been a smile. The scarring has stopped spreading, she announced. In fact, some of it appears to be healing. Your lungs are clearing. Charlotte couldn't speak. She just sat there trying to process words she'd never thought she'd hear. How is that possible? Liam asked. The treatment, the exercises, the fresh air, they're working exactly as they should. Charlotte's body is finally winning the fight. Margaret packed up her equipment. Keep doing what you're doing. At this rate, you'll be in full remission by spring. After Margaret left, Charlotte walked outside and just stood there breathing in the cold winter air. Each breath felt like a miracle. Each moment felt like a gift. Liam joined her, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. We did it, she said. You did it. No, we did it. I couldn't have survived this without you. Charlotte turned to face him. I came here expecting to die. Instead, I found a reason to live. I found you. I found you too, and I'm never letting you go. That night they made love for the first time since Charlotte had arrived. Slow and careful, and full of wonder. Afterward, lying in Liam's arms, Charlotte felt something she hadn't felt in years: safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. Safe enough to hope. Safe enough to plan. Safe enough to imagine a future. I want children, she said into the darkness. Liam's arms tightened around her. When you're stronger. I'm strong enough now. Charlotte. Not now, but soon. Spring maybe. I want to give you a family, Liam. I want to fill this house with life and noise and chaos. I want to prove to everyone, to myself, that I'm not just surviving. I'm living. Liam rolled over to look at her. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Spring came early that year. Charlotte watched the land come back to life and felt like she was blooming alongside it. Her strength returned day by day. She started helping with ranch work again. Real work this time, not just token tasks to make her feel useful. She planted the garden, mended fences, helped Liam with the cattle. The town noticed. People who'd written her off as a dying woman now saw someone vibrantly alive. Mrs. Patterson actually apologized for her harsh words. Thomas Reed stopped by with a thank you gift for helping save his barn, a beautiful hand-carved blanket chest for the baby he hoped they'd have someday. On a warm April morning, Charlotte woke feeling different. She couldn't name what had changed, just knew something had shifted inside her. She got out of bed, did her breathing exercises, and realized she'd gone through the entire routine without thinking about it. Without pain, without fear. She was healed. The thought hit her so suddenly, she had to sit down. Not in remission, healed. The consumption that had ruled her life for 3 years was gone. Her lungs were scarred but whole. Her body was damaged but functioning. She was alive, truly alive, for the first time since her diagnosis. Liam. She ran outside, found him working on the new barn they'd started building. Liam, I'm healed. He dropped his hammer, turned to face her. What? I'm healed. I can feel it. The consumption is gone. Charlotte grabbed his hands, laughing and crying at the same time. We won. We actually won. Liam pulled her into his arms, lifted her off the ground, spun her around. When he set her down, he was grinning wider than she'd ever seen. I knew you'd make it, he said. I always knew. Liar, you were terrified. Terrified and certain. Both things can be true. Charlotte kissed him, poured everything she felt into that one gesture, love and gratitude and joy and relief. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, she rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Strong and steady and real. I want to have that baby now, she said. Now. Well, not this exact second, but soon. I want to start our family, Liam. I want to build the life we both deserve. Then that's what we'll do. 6 months later, Charlotte stood on the porch watching the sunset, one hand resting on her slightly swollen belly. She was 4 months pregnant, healthy and strong, carrying the future inside her. Liam came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. You were right, he said quietly. About what? About everything. About fighting. About believing. About love being enough to heal. Charlotte covered his hands with hers. Love didn't heal me. Margaret's treatment did. Margaret's treatment kept you alive. Love gave you a reason to want to stay alive. There's a difference. Charlotte thought about that first day collapsing on the platform, certain she was looking at her husband for the first and last time. She thought about all the days after the fear, the pain, the moments when giving up would have been easier than fighting. She thought about Liam's steady presence through it all, his refusal to let her quit, his unwavering belief that she could survive. You're right, she said. Love didn't cure the consumption, but it cured me of something worse, the belief that I wasn't worth saving. Liam turned her in his arms, looked down at her with such tenderness it made her chest ache. You were always worth saving, Charlotte. I just helped you see it. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. Their baby kicked, then a strong flutter against Charlotte's palm. She pressed Liam's hand to the spot, watched his face light up when he felt it too. That's our future, she said. Right there. Alive and real and possible because we refuse to give up. Our future. Liam agreed. The one we're going to build together. Charlotte looked out at the ranch, the repaired barn, the thriving cattle, the garden bursting with vegetables, the life they'd created from nothing but hope and stubbornness and love. She thought about the woman who'd stepped off that stagecoach nearly a year ago, sick and scared and convinced she had nothing left to lose. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, braver, more alive than she'd ever been. The consumption had tried to kill her. The doctors had given up on her. The whole world had written her off as a lost cause. But she was still here, still breathing, still fighting, still loving. And she would be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, building a life worth living with the man who'd believed in her when no one else would. Charlotte Pierce Callahan had come west to die, but instead she'd learned how to live, and nothing in this world or the next would ever take that away from her.